Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia, on Thursday railed against a group of Republicans who helped tank a resolution to censor Representative Rashida Tlaib, Democrat of Michigan, arguing they hid behind excuses. Our country is in the worst crisis in its history in every category, and the Democrats are full-blown communists, and Republicans can't even censor Rashida Tlaib, Greene wrote in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter. Conservatives on this list hide behind excuses with their white wigs on and quote the Constitution. The post is accompanied by a photo of the list of 23 Republicans who voted to kill the resolution. Greene last week moved to force a vote on the censure resolution in connection with Tlaib's criticism of Israel in the wake of Hamas' attack against the country last month. The nearly 24 votes were somewhat of a surprise, as House Republicans have criticized Tlaib in the past for his statements about Israel. Tlaib is the only Palestinian American in Congress. They claim they claim the reason they voted with the Democrats to table my censure resolution against Rashida Tlaib is because her full-blown support for Hamas with words and actions is her free speech, yet they are unwilling to use Congress's free speech, which is censure, to condemn her. Greene wrote in the later post. Greene's resolution accused Tlaib of anti-Semitic activity after Tlaib expressed concern over the U.S. supplying arms to Israel and called for lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, and dismantling the apartheid system that creates the suffocating, dehumanizing conditions that can lead to resistance. The resolution also accused Tlaib of leading an insurrection for her participation in anti-war protests last month at the Capitol that called for a ceasefire in Israel's war with Hamas, which is a recognized terrorist group by the U.S. and several other countries. Greene said Thursday that the group of Republicans are clutching their pearls. I should have worn a pearl necklace just for this. Because she called October 18th an insurrection, a reference to the Capitol protest last month. The Department of Justice weaponized against conservative Trump supporters and Trump himself and is abusing their power to persecute them with the full weight of the government calling January 6th an insurrection. She continued. The conservative firebrand argued that if the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot was considered an insurrection, then the Department of Justice must be forced to prosecute everyone involved on October 18th exactly the same way. Claiming the country will continue to implode with Republicans who will do nothing, while Republicans will do nothing, Greene said that Republicans will continue hearings, trips to the border, and writing strongly worded letters rather than harsher actions such as impeachment or censure. Greene also specifically took aim at Representative Chip Roy, Texas, one of the 23 Republicans who voted against Tlaib's censure. You voted to kick me out of the Freedom Caucus, but keep CNN wannabe Representative Ken Buck, Republican of Colorado, and vaping, groping Lauren Boebert, and you voted with the Democrats to protect terrorist Tlaib, Greene wrote in response to a post from Roy's press office about Tlaib. You hate Trump, certified Biden's election, and you could care less about January 6, 2021 defendants being persecuted. Greene was referring to her ousting from the conservative House Freedom Caucus earlier this year after she supported the debt limit that former Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden agreed upon to avoid a debt default. She has since called the group the Burn It All Down Caucus and taken aim at Boebert, who came under fire after her behavior during a theater performance in September led to her being removed from the theater. Roy responded to Greene's dig Thursday, telling the Hill, tell her to go chase so-called Jewish space lasers if she wants to spend time on that sort of thing. In reference to a 2018 poster, Greene suggested that a laser beam or light beam from space solar generators could be to blame for the devastating wildfires in California. What a story. I don't even know just how to begin this. I guess we can go in order because that's typically the way this goes. Our country is in the worst crisis in its history in every category. Democrats are full-blown communists. Republicans can't even censor Tlaib. So I think it's comedic that she tries to say Congress's free speech is to censor someone who has an opinion that a majority of members don't agree with. And, Greene has this thing, and the postings were funny, I laughed, whatever, but she has this thing where she'll say, oh, they're going after the January 6th protesters, and they're persecuting them, and we need to go after what day did she call it? The October 18th protesters. And I said, there's a big difference between October 18th of this year and January 6th of 2021. For one thing, as far as I can tell, the October protesters didn't go around threatening to hang the vice president or breaking into people's offices and stealing stuff. No, they were there to protest the U.S.'s response to the Israeli-Hamas conflict that's currently going on. And one of the other comments that Greene made that I just thought was so, and really the whole thing is goofy, but where you have her and she says, where is it? They claim, where is it? So she calls Tlaib anti-Semitic, and this, we've said before, in the United States, a lot of politicians who are backed by AIPAC do not want to ever hear any criticisms of the Israeli government. So they use the religion of Judaism as a means of getting out of listening to actual criticisms of the apartheid state of the Israeli government, which has nothing to do with the people running it happening to be Jewish. Because like I said, there's plenty of other governments that are trash too, like the Saudi Arabia one, for example. But if you actually read Tlaib's statement, she said she called for lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, dismantling the apartheid system that creates the suffocating, dehumanizing conditions that can lead to resistance. This is not her being anti-Semitic. This is not her saying, Hamas was right, I fully back them killing innocent Israelis. None of that came out of her mouth. This is her saying, hey, you should look at what the Israeli government has been doing for decades and ask yourself if they may have, by treating these people in an inhumane way, have contributed to the reasons for this attack. It doesn't mean you sympathize with Hamas, but you have to recognize they are a slither of the Palestinian population. So whatever way you've been treating Palestinians, you might want to look at that and go, okay, well, is there possibly some malpractice that was there that contributed to this later act by this subset of people, or terrorists rather. So the fact that she's able to look at Tlaib's statement, which is pretty nuanced, and say, oh, you just don't like Jews, is just, again, it's like, it's more slandering, more lies. And I don't even approve of the House. I think the House is run by idiots, but I mean, look, they got rid of their speaker after 10 months, so they could sit around for 3 weeks and do nothing. And the new guy they have is probably going to be gotten rid of as well. But even them, they looked at her and they said, yeah, this is not grounds to actually get rid of someone. Sorry to burst your bubble. The more funnier part is CNN wannabe Ken Buck, because are Republicans only allowed to go on Fox News? They have to, they're limited to what news outlets. I wouldn't even call Fox a news outlet, a propaganda arm for the GOP, but it's like they're limited to what outlets they can go on. My favorite part, vaping, groping Lauren Boebert. It's so, we were, I don't usually promote other people's shows, but I'll never forget, I was watching the Majority Report one time, and Emma Vigeland talked about how interesting it was that both Greene and Boebert got divorced, like within months of each other, like, just within this past year. And in spite of going through something that's pretty similar, you've been married to somebody for 10, 20 years, whatever, there is no solidarity. They will tear each other down with no problem as to advance their own career. And while Greene is a little bit more, I'd say, well known than Boebert is, they're both part of that like rising star of members of the House, the ones that kind of get talked about and mentioned here and there. So it's really funny that they just pick any chance they can and not only step over each other's feet, but to also like make, like, what does Boebert's Beetlejuice getting thrown out of experience have to do with her voting to not censor Tlaib for having an opinion that Greene doesn't like? It doesn't. But that's why I said these people, they, even in their own party, they turn each other so fast. And it's been real fun to watch her just explode online. Because, we live in the, it's interesting to think about how Congress has been around for over 200 years. And only for the last probably 15, 16, 17 have you really had social media. And we're in this era now where members of Congress don't actually talk to each other, right? They don't actually like have any discussions about, hey, are you going to support me on this? If you do, I'm like making deals, etc. What they'll do is they'll make a public post like Greene about all the people they dislike. Oh, Tlaib is anti-Semitic. Oh, vaping, groping Lauren Boebert, and CNN wannabe Ken Buck. And she's not doing this because she thinks it's going to change their minds or like the voters going to put pressure on us. Because most voters could care less about trying to censor a member of Congress, especially over something as stupid as them choosing to not support the government of another country full-throatedly without being a little bit objective about it. But she posts all this stuff not because she's trying to use public pressure to get them to change their minds, switch their votes, etc. She knows it fits into her fundraising and her high-profile nature to use these people as a means to promote herself so more people will donate to her. She'll get articles written about her. I mean, look at The Hill. They put up an article about tweets. Like she's one of the only members of the House, because even AOC has fallen off as far as like I don't see her getting mentioned that as much anymore. But she's one of the few members of the House where she can just tweet something and you can expect multiple articles written about it, especially when it's her having a meltdown like this. So I want this day to be marked down November 2nd, 2023. We don't know how long Greene is going to be in the House. She lives in the safe red district, but she might get picked for Trump's VP or run for Senate or some other thing that's going to be harder for her to actually stay on to. But I want today to be known as her first meltdown. She didn't succeed with her goofy resolution that she knew wasn't probably not going to pass because the Republicans have a very slim majority. And it wasn't enough for her to just, take her loss and keep trying or, do whatever. So she has to go online and start attacking both the member of Congress who was able to beat her without even trying. Tlaib didn't have to go and protest her innocence. All she had to do was just sit there and watch the resolution fail. But also she goes after members of her own party. And not because there's some big substantive disagreement with them, no, because it simply goes against her ego, and she has to use these personal attacks to make herself, I guess, look better. So this was the first Marjorie Taylor Greene meltdown. I wonder if we're gonna get a sequel.